Morning, it's the Sanderson Trail report from about mile 185.5 on the PCT. Today is Tuesday the 6th of April 2021, and this is the start of the Fuller Ridge Trail, which is a 5-mile section of the PCT here going northbound, which has a reputation for some fairly challenging snow and ice. I just came in from the PCT southbound, that direction. This winter we've had a very poor snow year, particularly at these upper elevations, and in the last week or so in particular we've had very warm conditions, probably the warmest first week of April on record for the Sanderson Mountains. So I'm not expecting conditions to be as challenging as they should be. This time of year, this sign should probably be under snow. Typically the snow's a foot or two deeper than it is right now. Encouraging signs early on, but there are some pretty already significant sections that are lacking or largely lacking any snow or ice. I'm getting close to about mile 186. So far the icy snow patches have been more or less like that, pretty short and sweet and fairly solid steps. Now, one issue right now is, as you can see, some of this is pretty post-holy. In the afternoons, late morning afternoons, as warm as it's been, some of this snow's got very soft. People have clearly been going in, certainly maybe knee-deep in places. I'm coming through right now, it's just after 7 o'clock in the morning, and it's pretty nice and firm, so I'm getting a good solid grip on the ice, even though I'm still haven't quite gone to spikes yet. It's something to be conscious of. Some people prefer to go through in the afternoons when they're kind of getting a nice foothold. Personally, I prefer early mornings when it's nice and hard and my feet are going to stay exactly where I expect them to. So at about 186.1, this is actually where the North Fork of the Sanderson River crosses. I can actually just hear some water flowing down in this crack here. This actually presents a bit of a challenge because this is an important spot for filling up with water, but that's not an option right now. It's also one of those spots where the trail that I should have been on comes around there. Trail is currently coming through up over there. For most folks, probably recommended to have spikes, and PCT northbound is here straight ahead of me. So just past the North Fork crossing here at about 186.1, and this is one of the reasons that Fuller Ridge trails, of the established trails, one of my favourites in the entire San Jacinto mountain range, because of these sorts of vistas. Oh, some red crossbills just there. Black Mountain in the middle of the view there. Some low marine cloud at about 3,000 feet obscuring the flatlands. And as you can see, once you're past the North Fork crossing, back out onto a pretty clear trail, this is pretty sun exposed, so it clears off quickly. So now I'm at about 186.4. This creek, such as it is, comes down out of Little Round Valley. The significance of this creek is that this is currently the last water for about 8 miles till around 193.9. I'll talk about that later. That source is also becoming pretty inconsistent. Normally this would be a lovely flowing creek through the nice rockwork here. There's a little bit of a trickle down there. As of right now, this little pool here is your main water fill-up. This is really pretty discouraging, how little water there is. When 193.9 dries up, which I took a look at it the other day, could be really soon, that's certainly not dependable at this point, then this would be your last water for 23 miles until the Snow Creek faucet at about 207. And my PCT northbound is right there. Okay, coming up to about 187.5. As you can see, the PCT southbound behind me is clear, has been basically clear for almost a mile. Kind of a shock, frankly, that it's cleared as quickly as it has. This rather distinctive marker is right around 187.5, and typically this is a point at which we start to get significantly more snow hanging on a sort of northeast facing slope. Actually not too significant through here. This slope way down to the Coachella Valley, but some pretty nice steps. And like I say, this is early morning when it's pretty hard and icy. Later in the day will be even easier, but the fact that there are even some breaks like this makes it significantly easier to get through. So getting through close to about mile 188 and getting back up onto the ridge. The last half mile's been a lot of this kind of stuff. Frankly, nothing overly challenging. Worth being careful on, of course. And again, depending on your comfort level, spikes might be the best option for you. It also depends a little bit on time of day. So here I'm at about 188.6, one of my favourite vistas of the mountain here, looking at the east branch of the West Fork of Snow Creek, San Jacinto Peak, up there in the upper left, and back here on the PCT. The previous 0.6, 0.7 miles have been completely clear. It was southwest facing. This next section's the last section to clear, between about 188.6 and around 190. It's pretty continuous snow, but even though it's still only around 9 o'clock in the morning, it's already soft, getting soft. As we get close to about mile 190, maybe 190.1, 190.2, that snow is starting to really thin out and starting to get some more extended bare patches. So pretty much as predicted, between about 188.5 and around 190, probably 190.2, pretty much continuous snow for a mile and a half, a little over a mile and a half. But snow depths being about half or a third of what they should be at this time of year. The angle of the slope and the nature of the snow and ice is much less daunting than it typically would be for Fuller Ridge in early April. And then as we get to at least what's traditionally called about 190.5, that's the north end of Fuller Ridge Trail and the Fuller Ridge Campground, and the camping area is conveniently clear of snow. PCT northbound straight ahead. Final descent from the campground back out to Black Mountain Road, and PCT heads northbound this way. So hopefully that gives a pretty good feel for the current state of the Fuller Ridge section. The section that's behind me that goes northbound from about 191 down through to 206, 207 at Snow Creek just reopened on Saturday. That was 3 days ago, 3rd of April. As a consequence, a lot of people to this point had skipped the Fuller Ridge section, and I could see there were relatively few tracks, you know, a dozen people, maybe more, maybe fewer. I imagine at this point most folks are going to want to come through that section now that 191 northwards is open. Just one note from Forest Service, that technically only the tread of the trail is open between 191 and 206. In theory, no camping is allowed along that section. You can just hike the trail. If people stick to that, then I imagine most folks will want to stage at the Fuller Ridge campground that we just came through, and then head down this section kind of all in one day. It's pretty much downhill all the way. So that's 16, 17 miles. That's, you know, pretty straightforward to do in one go. Fuller Ridge is certainly nowhere near as daunting as it has been historically. Like I say, snow levels probably a half or a third of what it should be for early April. That's the least snow that I've seen on Fuller Ridge in April for since probably 2015. So even though each of the last, whatever it is now, 9 years have been below average snow years, this is one of the poorest, even amongst that pretty poor run of form. Nevertheless, most folks will probably be interested in having spikes. Certainly at the moment, for some sections, particularly that last mile or two, about 188.5 to 190-ish. Nothing particularly challenging. In interests of full disclosure, I didn't put my spikes on. Not necessarily the smartest decision. That's partly because I'm obviously pretty comfortable on this terrain, and also because that way I get a sense for kind of how challenging it is if you don't use spikes. But that's not necessarily what I'd recommend for the majority of people right now. But that's going to change really quickly the way the weather's going. No precipitation in the forecast. Obviously that could change in a couple of weeks, but conditions are only going to get easier the more people who come through, the more the trail gets consolidated and becomes clearer and has good steps and so on. A huge thank you to my next door neighbour Alex Coleman, who edits and produces these videos. And if you want more information, check out the San Jacinto Trail Report online. And if you found these videos or the website useful, please give some thought to checking out the donate page. Every contribution is greatly appreciated. And safe hiking, everyone.